Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Guys, don't say I didn't tell you. About a year ago, I did a video on this bait and it was pretty down low at that point. And right now it's starting to pick up a lot of steam and there's a lot of guys that are fishing it because it's making them that much more efficient on the water. So I want to dive into this bait a little bit. For me, I've got a really good background story on it because I didn't use it anything like the way guys are using it now. But when I first started fishing in the fall period, my dad would take us to a small little creek to do some smallmouth fishing. And when we were there, we generally would throw one bait, and that was about it. And that was pretty much because my grandpa would actually use it, and that's what he would catch fish on. So that's what we would use. And that was this bait right here. This is actually one of the ones I threw back in that time period. This is a Rapala or Rapala countdown minnow. So it's a weighted minnow. It's not a floating one. It actually sinks. And the idea, a countdown, is you could count how deep it would go based on how long you let it fall, right? So there's a countdown rate to it. And when I was fishing that stream, which would average anywhere from 2 feet deep to 6 feet deep, we threw it because it was heavier, and in that current, we felt like it would keep the bait down a little bit more than, say, a floating Rapala, which would just float on the surface. And whether that actually was beneficial to us or not, I could argue one way or the other. Back then, we really didn't know what we were doing, and I probably wouldn't be throwing this bait in that situation if I was fishing that same creek. The reality is, it did work for us, and we caught a bunch of fish. I kind of put them in my tackle box for a long period of time, pulled them out every once in a while, didn't do that much with them until probably about 2 years ago with the advancement of forward facing sonar. Everyone was catching them on jerk baits. Some guys were weighting them. Well, I started pulling this guy back out and having some pretty good success because I could get this bait to run down to the level that I wanted it based on counting it down and then retrieving it at that depth because it kind of maintains that depth. So for me, it was like, man, this clicks in my head. I've thrown the count down quite a bit in the past. If I see a fish down 20 feet, I can get it down there without fishing a jerk bait and trying to pull that fish up to get it. I could get the bait down to where that fish is at. Well, I did a video about a year ago talking about that. Well, I got to tell you, and I'm not saying it's because of that video because it wasn't a super highly watched video, but I think a lot of other anglers have finally figured it out because they're starting to catch them on this bait really good. Regardless of whether it's largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass, this bait is kind of having a resurgent. It's not kind of, it is having a major resurgent amongst a lot of the elite anglers out there because they can fish a jerkbait at the level that the fish are at now versus having to fish a jerkbait or weight a jerkbait down to them. This bait is made to get down deeper to get to where the fish are at. So it's been very, very beneficial for me. I've had a lot of success on it this year. It's a bait that I use for a lot of late season smallmouth as well that are down in 20 plus feet of water. It just allows me to keep the bait down there. The other nice thing is, again, with the forward facing sonar, if the bait does start to rise up, I can drop it right back down and I can re-engage those fish. So it's been really beneficial for that. Now, I do want to point out a couple of things. First and foremost, I don't necessarily fish it the same way I would fish a traditional jerkbait with really hard snaps of the rod. If you can overwork these baits, meaning you can get them to tangle up on themselves. So it's a lot more twitching, almost like you're fishing it like a lot of jig head minnows where you see guys shaking the rod tip. This bait has action in it. When you straight retrieve it, it has that traditional floating minnow wiggle that Rapala is known for. So you don't necessarily want to work it the same way as a jerkbait. You're just looking to work it with a little bit of twitches, keep the fish engaged, keep it down at the level that those fish are at. From a tackle perspective, I'm throwing it on what I throw most jerk baits on. I'm going to be fishing it on like a 6.6 or 6.9 medium light, moderate fast action rod, 6 to 8 pound fluorocarbon. That's pretty much how I'm fishing it, but it's all about keeping it down at where those fish are at. You can engage them, you can keep them active with it, you can retrieve it at a nice slow pace where the bait is imparting action on its own. Really good. Another key tip is if you're using the older ones, like this one right here, I do like to replace the hooks out and use put some better hooks on it, like the Fusion 19s or some Gamis, whatever the hooks are that you like to use. The newer Rapala countdowns come with much better hooks than the older brass colored ones here. But this is one of those baits too that you can find all over the place. A lot of garage sales, a lot of resale shops. You can pick them up for cheap. You can still buy them at Tackle Warehouse. I'll put the link there for it. But if you're not fishing one and you like forward-facing sonar, I highly recommend it. They're great baits year-round, regardless of forward-facing sonar. Obviously, they've been around for I don't know how many years. I'm gonna guess probably 50 years at this point, maybe 70 years. It's probably more like 70 or yeah, probably 70, 75 years is probably more of an accurate guess. So obviously they work just great without forward-facing sonar, but it is having a revitalization based on forward-facing sonar because this bait was actually made perfect for it. So I just thought I'd pass that along. Man, like I said, I did a video like a year ago talking about how I was doing it, and I don't know why no one else is doing it. Well, I've talked to a lot of people recently that have added it to their arsenal. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate all of you. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow for you.